Hi guys, this is Dylan from the Fantasy app. I'm here with your Week 12 recap, so stay tuned to find out, and don't forget to download the Fantasy app and follow me on Twitter at Dylan Fantasy app. So to start off with, we have to talk about the big news, one being the Patriots finally lost. They were defeated by the Denver Broncos, who played with their backup quarterback, so that was a big deal. Also, the New York Jets finally won. Ryan Fitzpatrick was able to take the team to a lead over the Dolphins. And finally, Johnny Manziel actually stayed third string. So after the first string quarterback got injured, we had the second string come in, and Johnny Manziel stayed suited up but stayed on the bench. So to start off with, we're going to talk about our quarterbacks. So our top scoring fantasy football quarterbacks this week were both Russell Wilson and Matthew Stafford. They both got 34 fantasy points. And coming in right after them was Ryan Fitzpatrick with 29 fantasy points. And we see that Tom Brady is not in the top 3 this week, which might be a surprise to some, but we will see what comes for him next week. So for our running backs, our top scorer was Adrian Peterson. He had 29 fantasy points. Right behind him was CJ Anderson. He had 27 points. And in third, we had Eddie Lacy. He had 17 points, and he's finally making a comeback, getting some touches. James Starks was starting to steal his thunder, but we see that he is getting the touches this week and was able to come in third. So for wide receivers, we had Doug Baldwin leading with 32 fantasy points, and right behind him, we had Calvin Johnson and Sammy Watkins, who both got a total of 27 points. And Sammy Watkins is someone who hadn't been performing that well week to week, but if you started him this week, you made the right decision because 27 points was definitely a big help for many teams. As we move on to our tight ends, our top scoring tight ends were Antonio Gates and Julius Thomas. They both had 17 fantasy points, and right behind them was Rob Gronkowski with 14 points. But as we know, Rob Gronkowski went on to get hurt, so it seems like the Patriots are losing people left and right between Julian Edelman, Gronk, Danny Amendola getting hurt. It seems to be a mess, which could be why they lost this time, but we will see what happens for them in the upcoming weeks. So our top scoring defenses included the Panthers, who scored 23 fantasy points, and then the Bengals and the Ravens, who both scored 16 points. And the Chiefs were expected to do well for a third week in a row, putting up high numbers, but unfortunately they only put up 6 points. So if you picked them up, hopefully they're expected to do better next week against the Raiders. So we're waiting to see where the numbers play out with that. So that's it for our Week 12 recap. I'm Dylan from the Fantasy app. Be sure to download the Fantasy app and follow me on Twitter at Dylan Fantasy app for advice, and check in tomorrow for our Week 13 predictions, which you do not want to miss because it's the last week before playoffs.